All right, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kaylin Largo, and today I will be introducing Andi Newberry and Cat Prose. Andi Newberry is a printmaker and multidisciplinary artist from North Texas. She's currently based in Colorado, um, and she has earned her BFA from Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls. And she also earned her MFA from the University of Colorado Boulder. And she is currently a visiting assistant professor of art at Midwestern State University for this spring semester. And Catherine Prose, she grew up in between Wichita Mountains and in Oklahoma and the White Mountains in Arizona. She holds a Master of Fine Arts from Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, and she's currently a professor at Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, in Texas.
There we go.
Thank you, Kaylin. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do we need to see ourselves? I don't know. Okay. So we have pre-recorded a screen print monotype demo. And this is kind of the first time I've ever recorded a demo. So it was a kind of fun process for us we spent like 2 days in the studio, recording the different processes. So we're going to show you three different techniques, working with watercolor, crayon, and then screen print ink. And then the kind of last part of the video just talks about like combining techniques and getting a little bit more complicated. Hopefully you can't hear the power washer.
Somebody just started blowing out a screen, so I might have to tell them to stop here.
So the video will be about 26 minutes long. And we thought we could do questions after. So you can just hold on to anything that comes up and then we can come back into like discussion view. But we'll just let the video play all the way through. So once we start playing it, you might want to like minimize the speaker views and like just get it as large as possible. But all right, anything else?
Yeah, and I think we want to express the lineage of how we learned these processes as well. I learned these processes from Linwood Krennick, who revolutionized water-based screen printing at Texas Tech University, and taught them to Andi, and that became an important practice for Andi, and something that I think that she's talked about before.
Mm-hmm. And like doing the demo together, and then when I was going back and editing, like there were moments where we're just chit-chatting and I was like, hey, remember that first screen print I did? Like these colors reminding me of that. So it was really kind of impacting me, that idea of like teaching lineage and relationships and all of that. So that kind of gets folded into this too.
Staying in touch and acknowledging your mentors and acknowledging, where things come from is a really important thing, I think, for printmakers. Don't hold on to the good stuff. Give it away. Okay, so we're not going to try, we're going to play this video. And, please let us know if there's any volume issues and we'll try to increase the volume on our end. Okay. Here we go.
Does other people hear the audio? Do you guys have audio? Cat, there's no sound.
That's a big problem. Okay, hang on. We
Maybe try
did this
playing
the
it
other.
and don't mute.
Oh, I know what it is. Hang on. Sorry, you have to say the hello twice. Oh my God. Hang on just a second. Wait. Just stop it. Stop the video for a second. No, no, no. It's on the share volume. Okay.
Okay, what is this?
I don't know. You grabbed the wheel and now we're crashing. Hang on.
Crashing.
On the screen, when you guys hit share, just make sure you also hit that share audio button.
Yeah, that's where we're trying to get to right
Okay.
now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Okay, let's see if this works.
You got it. We're good.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Hello. Hello. We're going to talk about the material list before we get started. So the first thing you're going to want is a screen. And the screen mesh can vary. The wider the mesh, the more ink that's going to come through. Perhaps the less control that you're going to have over some of the more detailed materials that you can get detail from. So you're going to need a screen. You're going to need your favorite squeegee. We recommend drawing material, either crayon d'Ache, which is
Water soluble.
you could also get artist loft, which is from where?
Very cheap from Michael's.
From Michael's, but I want to say that Walmart also has a brand, but these are water soluble wax pastel. So these have a little bit more wax content than the crayon d'Ache is more like pure watercolor. But you can also use Crayola crayons, which will stay in your screen for a little bit longer.
All right, and then we're also going to show you working with watercolor. These are like some fluid watercolor pigments that I've just had for a long time, but you can use almost any watercolor out of the cakes or the pans. These, which are Dr. P.H. Martin's watercolors, they're very, very intense in color. And then we've got, of course, brushes, which will be used for the watercolor. And then also we've just got a variety of screen printing ink. So I pulled these out just to show that this is a great way to use your leftover inks. So we'll show you how to do monotypes with just ink in the screen. So we've got ink and then also some transparent and acrylic extender base. And we'll be using the bases with all of these methods to help push the pigments and the materials through the screen. It acts as like a carrier to help push it through the mesh. We've got spatulas, we've got tape. Clear packing tape also works if you're just trying to tape off a large area of the screen. Always good to have just little scrapers. And then we've got some water and glycerin to help release and loosen anything that we're trying to push through the screen.
Yeah, and to help to also keep the screen inks wet, because in this process, especially when you're painting this on, the ink will want to dry in your screen, and so the glycerin will help prevent the ink from drying.
Okay. Then of course you need baby wipes, paper towels, paper, all that good stuff, and your great apron. Okay. Okay, so I have just divvied out a little bit of all my colors. And I'm gonna kind of freehand. I think we're brainstorming imagery and we're thinking about storms. So I think maybe I'll do something with that. But I just taped off my screen You can be a lot more, you can be as precise as you need in terms of registration or getting yourself a nice border. I just kind of eyeballed what looked clean for now. A lot of times when I'm screen monotyping, it's when I'm in the studio and I need to make something and I just need to get something out. So I end up using them later or collaging with them later. So usually registration in the moment, I'm just kind of like, okay, let's go with it. So I do have a little bit of water to the side here, but with this watercolor on screen, we're gonna let the watercolor dry before we print it. So you also want to be conscious of anything super liquid can drip through the screen. So if you have your paper resting underneath here, just be aware of that so that you don't have anything just dripping straight through the mesh. And with the yellow mesh, you kind of have to think about how that's not gonna show up yellow. So it can be kind of like a mind game. But just accounting for that color and how that's affecting how you're seeing all the other colors. So yeah, you can also like come back and work in stages, letting one part of it dry, and then coming back to get some sharper edges in there. Make sure before you print, if you are in love with it, you photograph it really well, because you don't know what it's going to look like when you pull it. So I don't know that I love it, but maybe it'll surprise me, and that's the thing that Screen Monotype always does. Let this dry. If you have a hair dryer in the studio, you can use that to speed things up a little bit. I don't know if there will be much of a difference, but I'm going to do half transparent base and then half acrylic, just for us to see. Because I think I usually just kind of go with whatever's on hand in the studio or what I have extra of. So we'll try a little bit. So I'll be doing the acrylic base, I guess, in this bottom half. And I've got my paper under here ready to go, but while I'm still up in the air, I'm gonna go ahead and flood it. And I'm kind of laying it on a bit thick. I want the trans and acrylic base to start like soaking up and saturating that watercolor, sort of preparing the watercolor to get ready to go through the screen.
Nice. That wetting the paper grabs it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's nice.
It's pretty.
I like it.
It's messy. I'm just trying out, I just drizzled the acrylic base over, and I'm gonna kind of pull this whole mess, but I'm gonna see if there's maybe like a subtle kind of like resist with the acrylic extender. See, it did actually kind of leave a cool mark there.
Yeah, that's nice. So some of the mark making here is going to look much like a Crayola crayon would look, but once it hits water, it can become very fluid. You can come back in with your paint brushes and even move those around a little bit to fill it in like a watercolor.
This was one where we left the remnants of these watercolor only monotypes. We left that in the screen, didn't wash it out, let it kind of stain, and then we went in with the crayons. And we're also going to try first onto dry paper, and then we'll pull another one onto some dampened paper. Because what we're really doing is, this is a big experiment. That's part of the game here. All right, I'm going to do a band up here of transparent base. I'm going to pull it, let it soak for a second. Especially because it's on dry paper, I think I'll have to do more work to get it onto there, whereas I think when we're dampening the paper, it's wanting to grab onto the pigment a little bit more.
Take a little peeky.
Woohoo! Wow.
That's really nice.
It's
Look at that surface
apocalyptic.
texture.
And sometimes the crayons, when you combine them with other media like the watercolor or the ink, they kind of act as a resist. Instead of pulling the pigment through, it blocks it out and acts as like a white arc here. Okay. And see? So now the path on the second go round, it came through instead of acting as a resist like it did in that first pull. That's beautiful.
So nice.
All right, so now we're going to be just working with the crayons. We're going to work with the crayon gouache, water-soluble crayons, and this cloth has a little wax where the crayon gouache doesn't have as much wax, and so they're a little bit looser. The vibrancy of the color is also a little bit different. We're also not going to be taping off the margins of our screen. You can see the paper down below, and we're going to use that as our guide. So we're going to be kind of working as a bleed or open composition on this particular one. So now we're just drawing into the screen with the crayons, and we're going to have a little bit more control over what we're making here. The acrylic extender base, and I am applying it just to the bottom just so I can take it up to the screen, so when I'm ready to print it I can go from down up. And so I'm trying to just saturate the screen. I'm gonna let it sit for a couple of seconds. That was an amazing sound. Ooh, nice. So we did get some resist. All right, so we can get several off of this now. Okay, so then before I go for the color, I almost killed myself. Nice. Kind of looks like sgraffito art. All right. So we're just outlining the drawing so we know where we're going with this. This is Crayola crayon, so it'll stay in the screen as we go. So if you wanted to run several.
So I'm just using the spatula to kind of gently drag and scoop the ink around. I like to allow for a little bit of like dribbling. And anywhere that you have a gap, that's where whenever you pull down, it's going to get filled in. So if I'm thinking about areas that I don't want to get filled in when I'm pulling down that flood of ink, I go ahead and make sure I have ink there in that spot to kind of block that off and resist it. It's kind of like first come, first serve with whatever's getting down into that mesh is going to show up.
Listen to
Do you remember my first print where I had my legs like this?
Mm-hmm.
Triangles with this the pink and yellow and red.
So when we run this, we're going to run it with a back color. We want to make sure that that back color is contrasting to whatever you painted on the screen. So in this case, we're going to use blue. After we run it, we're going to take all of the ink out. If you're going to run multiple of these, I would start with fresh ink. So you want to take out and discard of the ink that you've already made, or you already pulled, or make a new color out of it. We don't want that to drip everywhere. So here you can see there's some ink residue here, and I could pull it and I could get a really nice ghost. But I could also start playing with space and spatial relationships by painting some areas on the screen and leaving the other areas where they are in terms of ink saturation.
another one. One more fire. Needs two more.
So if you run a screen monotype and you notice that you've missed a corner and you've already pulled up your screen so you can't go back and squeegee it, if you just take a dry brush and just go through it while it's wet, and you don't have to worry about running it again. See, beautiful. You can just diffuse some of these lines that you've done. I wanted to show you that as you've done, this particular monotype has the watercolor and then also the crayon. And now we're going to go ahead and add a layer of some additive painterly marks onto the screen and to screen it on. To show you that although these are monotypes, you can keep going in and you can keep working them. I'm just going to run it dry. And when you're doing this, you want to think about movement. How are you moving your squeegee? However you move your squeegee, that's the direction that your image is going to go. So you need to think about that movement. Does it need to go down? Does it need to go across? For this particular one, we're just going to experiment with going across and keep with that motion that's already been set on here. This has water and a little bit of glycerin, and we're going to spray it on the screen to kind of move some of this ink off. If you wanted to do a lot so you could get some drippy.
This last part, we're going to show you how you can use stencils and use monotype techniques in the backgrounds. So using the crayons for this background layer, and then I've got a halftone here that I'm just going to print in black on top, so you'll see how they layer on top of each other. I might use an ink color to flood this instead of using the transparent and acrylic bases, just to try something different out. Let it soak up enough so that it pushes the crayon through. Oh, that's cool. Ooh, that's cool. halftone layer on top. And this time I've got Mylar under here, so it'll help me register. And then this is just me printing screen print how I normally would, just on top of the Monotype backgrounds.
Well, I may not have been recording at all at any point in time, like when you were talking then. I may not have been. Oh, shit. I'm definitely going to have to overdub these.
Right. Now we stop the show.
Okay, hopefully that was okay. It looked okay on our end, so if it was buffering, I don't know, we can send this video directly to Alana and she can post it.
I loved the additional commentary during it.
It was kind of like
together.
vlogging. It was like vlogging a little bit.
I think you guys need
we
to
had fun.
vlog more often.
Well, I think it's a matter of, I never really got into in COVID doing videos and stuff, because if you work with other artists, I just start freaking out and I think about all the possibilities. And certainly with the screen monotype, there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of texture you can get from, a lot of spontaneity, which is really nice.
Sorry, I'm trying to get back to my office because my students are in printmaking. There's too many noises then at the same time.
So we're open to any questions. Hopefully it didn't buffer and you guys got all of that, or any experiences that you guys have with screen monotypes.
Do you is that like the main technique both of you use for a lot of your, because a lot of you both make mark making and different things. That's your main medium, no?
Yeah, I do work a lot in screen monotype. Right now, I'm doing a lot of laser engraving, and that's really out of my what I normally do, and it seems so mechanical. So I've been doing a lot of screen monotypes of progressions of wildflowers, and that seems to keep the hands on and that spontaneity going, and keep it hands on, since I'm so kind of far away technically right now with a current project that I'm working on. But I primarily work in screen printing. So
yeah, I think for me it just ebbs and flows. Like I have monotype in general has been kind of where I've been in the last year or year and a half. The screen monotype, it kind of also is for like a practical reason. Like I'll end up with all these inks from doing like so many layers of screen printing, and I'm just like a hoarder with a cart of ink. And it's a way for me to have a long studio day where I can be intuitive and flow and also like work through scrap paper and scrap ink. And that's another thing. I know there's not too many people in here right now, but I wanted to encourage anyone, like if you're gonna do this, especially when you're working with that ink, it can get so messy so fast, to like make sure if you're using communal ink that you're not like making a mess and intermixing and mixing all the colors that other people are also using. And so for me, it's like, okay, I have my own collection of all this ink and I need to get through it. So, and also like emotionally, sometimes it helps kind of release something and working that way.
Can quickly get through something. And I will say that monotypes are really what attracted me to printmaking right off the bat. But traditional monotypes where you're running through the etching press, I'll do a reductive monotypes, laying out a color and then wiping out the imagery and doing it that way. And I really loved the mark making quality and the saturation of ink. Printmaking produces qualities that no other media can. Like you can't really paint it, you can't really dye it. There's just something about printmaking and the mark making and the range of mark making that you can make that no other media can do, which I really love.
And I feel like too that oh, there's a question from Haley. Well, I'll let Haley ask her question first since she's there and she's ready.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go.
My question's about the demo. Do you find that you need to work faster while monotyping before the ink begins to dry, or is it possible to re-wet or revise areas once that filler has set?
I would say if you have something like you really want to be slow with and build it up, then working with the watercolor because with that one you're letting it dry before you're printing. So you can really take your time and really build up the image if you want to work that painterly and that intense. But there's some flexibility even with working with the ink because like having the water and the glycerin mixed in and ready to kind of, re-wet and kind of tend to that drawing in the screen. I would say it's still not like something that has to be super rushed as long as you're kind of, you can't walk off out of the studio, but that helps you kind of keep it open and working for a little while longer.
Yeah, definitely. With the screen monotypes, I usually work in a progression of 6. And so the first pull is going to be the strongest, the closest it is to your drawing. And then as you progressively lose ink and add ink, the image starts to degrade and, the image can get lost, but it brings up new surface texture and that sort of thing. And as long as your ink is mixed, you have glycerin within your ink, not just in the spray bottle, but mixed in your ink, you can work it for quite some time. But yeah, I wouldn't go have lunch and then come back and try to run it.
Thank you.
Is it much
That's Haley.
more
She's one of our people.
Yeah, I
she's
remember.
Yeah.
Is she in class right now or no? Because I was like, did Andy
No.
walk away from her?
No, they're just hanging out there watching us.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
I had a question and I immediately lost it. So both of you are like kind of in this collaborative process, and I really appreciate that at the beginning you kind of talked about keeping, relationships with students and the value of like mentorship and kind of stuff like that. I would love if you guys could talk a little bit about your experience too with like what Andy's doing right now, and how that experience has been coming back there. It's kind of not necessarily related to the demo, but
Yeah, but I mean, keeping up relationships. I'm currently on sabbatical. Well, we don't call it sabbatical here; we call it fellowship, and it's just a semester long. And timing was such that Andy was available to come and take over my classes, and so I think that was really cool for the students too, because it's just me here. We have just one print faculty, which is not we bring in people all the time, but I think having somebody rolling right out of graduate school and teaching is a really beneficial to the students. It's a different take than somebody, I've been here for 20 years working. And so it gives them another outlook, especially with our seniors. We had 5 print seniors graduating. And so it gave them a really neat perspective on finishing in their future. So, and then watching Andi, she's a natural, she loves to teach, and watching some of the things that she has kept from my teaching and then things that she's added from Melanie, and then also just on her own, in terms of assignments and that sort of thing. So it may have been weird for her to come back to her alumni institution to teach, but I don't know.
It's been great. I mean, like the teaching part, I could talk a lot about that, but it's also been great to, I think, like rekindle with Kat. I think we're able to kind of keep in semi-steady contact throughout when I was in Colorado for graduate school, and Melanie Yazzie brought her out as a visiting artist. So we are still keeping in kind of regular contact and try to meet up when I would come back for holidays and stuff. But I think this semester, even though it's been great that while she's on her research, like she's still around. So we're like goofing off in the studio together. We like collaborated on like a reductive woodcut for that started as a demo but kind of lasted the whole semester. But it's just been great to kind of get really close and kind of rebuild that, and coming back as like an alumni and having that different kind of mutual like we're at a mutual kind of level now, which is I think always interesting. Like when students are our students, we're still friends and we still have a very important relationship, but I think it's nice to see how that progresses. So it's been very fun.
And I do want to preface this by, thank you to all the students and Alana for giving us the opportunity to come in and do this together, because that was another really great thing to do. We hadn't worked collaboratively like that in a really long time. And when we did work collaboratively, it was very tight. And so this demo, we were able to be a lot looser and to experiment. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you guys are doing, and that putting this together, I know, is a hell of a lot of work, but it's going to pay off. And, having that administrative bone in your body, being able to like put this together and even put your website together, do social media, deal with technical issues, all of that, no matter what you do, is going to be really important, and it's going to be really a part of how you work. So thank you guys. Really, really thank you.
No, thank you. I really deeply appreciate you guys taking the time to connect and do this. And we're recording it, so I'm gonna be sharing it with I wish that this was like on the day I was teaching printmaking, because I this morning I made everyone sit in class for bookbinding. But a lot of my students are now having to be in other classes. So I'm glad this is recorded so I can play it tomorrow for I have a lot of students interested in kind of this medium. And I was talking, because we just had Todd here yesterday doing a demo, and I think it's really hard to teach so much nuances of some of the mediums when you have such a limited time. So these kind of like tastings are so valuable, where they can see like, okay, now I know how to burn an image in the screen, but now it doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to look the exact same, And I think that's, I personally am so type A that I don't tend to do monotype screen printing. I admire it. I love looking at you two doing your work. But I think that's why I loved being able to hear you guys talk about it, because I'm not showing it as well as you guys do, because that's more of your expertise than mine, for sure.
Yeah, we get it. As I didn't have anything to do with putting the video together. That was all you. But I liked how she put and now we're going to get a little crazy.
I know. I enjoyed the in between
wild and crazy printmaking gals.
Yes. So. I also love the music. I was like, Andi went above and beyond in the video, the videography alone.
Till she's flexing. She's looking for a job,
Well, I'll make sure that's on the forefront then. So it'll be like videography. This is why you want to hire Banner. I'll be like, do you need a videographer on top of a printmaking faculty? Here you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I'll send out the call. But yeah, I appreciate both of you guys taking the time too. And again, like the students, the way that this all came to be was really based on this class I teach called Art History and Community in Print. And they I offered suggestions, of course, for artists for them to look at. But it was all them, and they all were very excited. I was like, but they were looking at both of yours, and I was like, there's actually some almost collaborative efforts I think you could have between the two of you with the work that they were interested in for both of you. So I was like, I wonder if we can just make them both because I think they're both in the same place right now for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, worked out great. You guys did a lovely job. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? I think I had a lot of students had to go for class right at 4, so I think that's
Yeah.
why. But we have Minerva, I think is.
Yeah, she's one of ours too.
Hi guys.
Hi,
So
Minerva.
hi. So I had a question. I know that this is something that I've been really concerned about since my um and this might, I guess, vary because I know that my profession's going towards a different direction other than the studio. But in terms of managing the administrative task of being, like working in a classroom versus doing your own work outside, how or what type of advice would you give to manage that?
You just do it, like schedule it and do it. Yeah, I mean, because it gets, I have, I guess I have traumatized some students in several different ways. And one way that I traumatize them is my drawing one class, I usually say, out of a class of 18, if 2 of you guys are doing work 5 years from now, then we're doing pretty good. And they seem pretty shocked. But I'm really doing that to illustrate that, it has to come from an inner desire for you to make and you to work, right? Because you're going to, especially for you, Minerva, you're going to be an art therapist. And so you're going to be in a lot of, clinical area and, working, you're going to be working and making art with other people. And so really just scheduling it, you find whatever your rhythm is for your work or your teaching, and you literally build it into your schedule and make sure that you adhere to it. And if you can do that, then it's just going to be a natural rhythm, right? You're just going to be doing it and you're going to be making art. But it's also going to come at times when you're tired and that you don't want to. Like, this is just it. Like, yeah, we can all be inspired and what have you, but making art is just work. Being an artist is work. You're just like clocking in and making it happen. You can't be, on cloud 9 all the time. Like you have to be like, oh, I got to pull this edition. And then you get in and you start working, you get in the flow, and then you realize how wonderful it is and why you're doing it. I don't know.
I also think a little bit for me, like, even if I feel like the way I think about how I work is a lot of fragments, and that comes from a lot of like starting out with collage. But, sometimes I'm making these little things and I don't know end up or if they're going to end up in any kind of grand cohesive work. But for me, just kind of chipping away and doing these little things, it's always going to be better than not doing anything at all. So even if I'm working, and jumping between different modes, and maybe I'm just doing like these small collages, maybe I'm doing some trace monotypes and they don't go anywhere, it still is like contributing to the overall like flow and the overall like again like repeated attentiveness to art.
Can I ask a second question?
Yeah,
Go
you
for
can,
it.
Minerva.
Do you think that monotype helps a lot with kind of releasing that stress and energy? Like, I imagine that whenever there's, I guess, you're kind of like losing the ability to want to do it, collage and monotype is something that you're able to lean on so that you get that energy back.
I think it definitely has an immediacy that can be really nice. I mean, and it depends too, because sometimes I work in structured monotypes, like you've seen the Dr. Peppers or like the crowd pieces. Like those are planned out and those are sort of like monotonous. And sometimes I'm doing those, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired of doing this. So it's not always like woohoo, like release, but I think it does lend itself to being, more immediate and direct than some of the other forms. But I think another thing is that as much as I love printmaking and printmaking is how I think about myself as an artist, I also have enough ways to work where Like I can be flexible and I have multiple ways of working. So I can work with fabric and sewing at home. I can paint, I can draw. So depending on access to studio time, space, I have flexibility to kind of shape shift and work in different ways. And that kind of makes me feel better because I have more options, depending on what I need or what I'm able to do in a given moment.
Yeah, it's an important part of it is access, right? Because, once some of your students are graduating this semester and access to print facilities, you've got to be able to be flexible. But I think I'll pick up and say that, sometimes the screen monotypes can be a release, but sometimes they can be totally stressful. You don't know what, for me, as an artist, sometimes I don't know what I have. Like I make it and I'm not sure if it's any good or if I like it. And I have to put it away and put it in the flat file and then come back the next day and go, oh yeah, that's pretty nice. I like that. Or maybe there's something I like and I come back and I'm like, yeah, that's not good. I'll just keep this in the bin. But yeah, because I also want to say that it's not just always like this release. And I just meant, in the beginning when I was talking about monotypes, like it's just a different way of working, right? Like if you're doing a tight edition, you have to be on, you have to have that registration and that sort of thing. Whereas a screen monotype, you can work a lot larger and a lot looser, which can be a good thing or a bad. So does that help, Minerva?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
My last maybe question, depending on if there's another question from the audience, would be, do either of you ever print with this process on like materials other than paper? Like, have you done like fabric or these other, I think Andy, you've done fabric. Like, what's your experience with the other mediums? I'm sorry if you've already answered that at some point.
Well, I'm definitely gonna talk about that also in the panel because it has to do a lot with my installation pieces. But sometimes I kind of use screen monotype as like a strategy where I just need like fields of color and then I'm cutting that. So I'll print on fabric with the screen monotype. And I'm just interested in those fields of color and like the drizzled ink texture. But then I'm like cutting up and piecing that fabric together to kind of make something or recreate something. So sometimes I use it almost like instead of going to buy a color of fabric, I just want to print a color of fabric. So I like that because you have the wide open screen so I can get large areas and then kind of cut out of that. But yeah, I've done it on paper and like various fabrics from like canvases, like canvas-like fabric to maybe more thin sheer stuff.
Duralar and plastic works really great too. You can have transparencies and create shadows with them.
Is there any other final questions for our duo today? Okay. Oh, thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you
the
guys.
time. I appreciate you deeply. And Andy, I'm very excited to hear your second part tonight. I appreciate you on that panel too, because
I
I
will
think
be back.
it's going to be great. So we have another speaker here for 4:30 and then we'll have a break again. So let me end your recording.